Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. Got Kipp Adams and Ben Wolk with me on this Tuesday afternoon. Whole lot to get into on this episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast. We're going to talk about the SEC race, just looking around at how the conference is shaping up through 9 weeks. Look ahead to Georgia, Florida, Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Share what Kirby Smart and players had to say getting ready for that big game down in Jacksonville. Talk about a little recruiting controversy, courtesy of Nate Bargatze and College Game Day on Saturday. Also try to figure out who's taking this LSU job, and also going to round things out with Georgia basketball. Had an exhibition on Sunday, so I had a chance to watch that. Before we get started, guys, did either of y'all stay up for that 18-inning marathon, Dodgers Blue Jays? Kipp, did you stick around for it, or when did you tap out?
That was somehow past even my bedtime. I mean, listen. Just the thought that Freddie Freeman's jersey is going to be like retired as a Dodger is. I mean, like you can lock that in at this point. It's no, like I can't. I love watching it. I love watching the game, but I'm not rooting for the Dodgers to win a game. So I can't even imagine who they would have to play for me to, root for them. But no, didn't watch that one. And yeah, incredible game that I missed. Probably one of the best like baseball games that I did not see, but I'm not shedding a tear over not seeing that game.
Ben, did you stick around? Did you watch any of that one?
Well, I watched a lot of it. I think it was the second Shohei Ohtani intentional walk in extra innings. I was like waiting for Shohei Ohtani to just do something historic. I feel like if this was 20 years ago, I feel like Shohei Ohtani would be the biggest story in sports right now. But, he went 4 for 4, 2 home runs. He got walked 5 times. But I think it was after he got intentionally walked the second time in extra innings. I said, even if I stay up, it's not going to be Shohei Ohtani that does something cool. And to Kipp's point, I can only stomach watching Freddie Freeman win World Series for the Dodgers so much.
Yeah, I'll just add, and I've brought it up before on this podcast, that my wife is a diehard Dodgers fan. So I stayed up. I made it to probably about the 15th inning, and then I wound up having to tap out. I'll say, I can't remember if that was the 11th or the 12th inning when Will Smith hit the shot that everybody seemed to think was the game winner. I just yelled, like, thank God. I was like, oh, I'm finally going to be able to go to bed. Totally jinxed that. Probably took the wind off of that ball. About 2 a.m., I said, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to bed. Shout out to my wife, Shelby. She stayed up. Real, true, diehard Dodgers fan. It's probably, about 2:45, 2:50 in the morning. She saw her team win. And, yeah, I'm really not all that upset about the Freddie Freeman. Oh, he'll go into the Hall of Fame as a Dodger. I mean, that was the choice he made. It does stink. But my thought when I woke up this morning, quite several hours after the fact, if there was going to be a Dodger who did it, I was glad it was Freddie Freeman.
I mean, do we think he's going to retire as a Dodger? Not to sidetrack this entire Georgia-Florida podcast by talking about Freddie Freeman winning World Series elsewhere, but is he going to retire as a Dodger?
My vote is yeah. I think he'll play for the Dodgers the rest of his career.
Well, I mean, like when he goes into the Hall of Fame, you think he'll be a Dodger?
I think so. Just the big moments he's had specifically in World Series, that Yankees one, he had the walk-off. I think, maybe Freddie decides to play it both ways and not have a logo.
Atlanta wouldn't have won a World Series without Freddie Freeman. The Dodgers would have won plenty.
He's got deferred money going into 2040. I think it's probably baked into the contract that, this is the hat you wear because the man's getting $4 million a year until he's 50 years old. So I think that's an easy decision for me if the franchise is willing to just pay me, over a decade after I last played the sport. So I think, I think he finishes out this contract and then that's it.
It's brutal. I'm just saying, if he left the Dodgers right now, he wouldn't get a standing ovation when he returned home.
Kipp talked about a easy decision there. Well, let's talk about what would be a tough decision, and that's figuring out which of these SEC teams would make the college football playoff. Guys, we are 9 weeks into this season, and there's still really not any separation from any of the top teams. Just looking right now, 6 teams have just one conference loss, and I'll go through the standings to this point, at least those top teams. Last undefeated team left overall, Texas A&M 8-0, 5-0 in conference. Alabama's next up, still undefeated in conference play, 5-0, 7-1 overall. You have got 4 teams right behind them with one conference loss. Ole Miss at 4-1, Georgia 4-1, Vanderbilt 3-1, Texas 3-1, and Texas does have that other loss against Ohio State to open the season. So I feel like this is a very loaded playoff race across the country, not just in the SEC. So I thought it was worthwhile to look at these teams with no more than one loss in SEC play to try to get a feel for who do we think are legit and who do we think are going to wind up fading down the stretch. So again, those teams we're talking about, Texas A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Texas. I'll start with you, Ben. Of that group, who do you feel the most confident about, and who do you think will fall to the wayside these next few weeks?
I mean, just out of all the one-loss teams, or anybody that's one loss or better?
I say one loss or better.
Okay. Well, okay, because I believe very heavily in Alabama and Texas A&M right now. I think that they control their own destiny and they're going to play for the conference championship, barring something that I don't expect to happening. I mean, what's interesting is like the teams that I believe in that group. I believe in Georgia. I believe in Ole Miss. I think I believe in Vanderbilt. And I believe in Tennessee. Like, I think Tennessee is a good football team as well. I know that wasn't one that you mentioned, but I mean, I kind of think all these teams are pretty good, and that's why you're seeing tight games in SEC play. It's why you're seeing, I think, a chance for some really weird scenarios to play out, not just with the SEC championship game, but also with how many teams can the playoff committee start feeling comfortable that they're letting in from the SEC. Because I really think all these teams are pretty good. Now, there's a lot to play out. There's some of these teams like, Georgia and Texas play each other. Vanderbilt and Tennessee play each other. So there's certain things that still have to play out on the field that will dictate some of it. But, I mean, yeah, the one team out of that group that I'm still like, I got to see more to really believe it is Texas, but they might be as talented as anyone, technically speaking. And so who knows? I just think that this SEC is really fascinating. It just feels to me that A&M and Alabama, to me, with what they've done already and what they have ahead of them, just have a leg up on everyone clearly right now.
No, I think it's a totally fair read of things. Just looking at this and trying to consider, too, what they have ahead, the path forward. I'm with you. I feel the best about A&M and Alabama. A&M's slate, if they can beat Missouri 2 weeks from now at Missouri, there's a chance they go undefeated in the regular season. They do have to play Texas, but I think they would be in good shape even if Texas were to win that game. Alabama, I think they're in pretty good shape. And then these 4 teams, I think there are 2 of these 4 teams that could legitimately be part of the playoff race. Ole Miss, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Texas. I think Vanderbilt falls off. Ole Miss, their road ahead, very manageable. If they take care of business, shouldn't be an issue there. I'm kind of at the point where I think that Georgia-Texas game, that game between the hedges, is going to go a long way in determining who among those 2 teams make the playoff. And I think that you look at Texas, they've got those 2 losses, but I think they've got one of the best losses in the country because that loss was at Ohio State in week 1. So, that's a game Georgia cannot afford to lose when Texas comes to town. I think if they do that, they're in real danger of missing the playoff, not only because we're talking about how deep this SEC group is of legitimate playoff contenders. But, I mean, you look at the Big Ten right now, you look at some of the other teams, it's a very deep field 9 weeks into the season of teams that could legitimately make the playoff. And like the point Ben made, like Tennessee's not out of this at 3-2. Missouri got dealt a tough blow losing their quarterback. But, if they beat A&M in a couple weeks, they'll still be right there. The Georgia-Texas game, man, it stands out to me as one that whoever loses that game, you're probably going to need a lot of help elsewhere to still be part of the playoff race. Kipp, what do you make of the field right now as far as the SEC goes and who you're feeling confident about and who might need some help?
I would say I feel the most confident about Ole Miss because, for the most part, they've already had their tests. I think we're talking about everything a lot differently right now. If South Carolina, I mean, they had Alabama on the ropes. So I guess we should look at this Ole Miss South Carolina game a little differently, but at the same time, they're probably looking at South Carolina a little bit differently right now as well. I think Alabama's slate similar to Ole Miss, where now you've got an LSU team that just made a coaching change. You got kind of an Oklahoma team that's reeling a little bit, and then you got Eastern Illinois and whatever version of Auburn is going to show up for the Iron Bowl, which I think we'll be talking about Auburn a little bit later as far as the twists and turns of this coaching carousel season, how it's impacting them. But you never really know if what they're going to do with Hugh Freeze there. So that's kind of a wild card, but it's very manageable. And I think it's all on Texas right now. Like, you look at who has the most to prove right now, you can look at it two ways. You can say, man, like, the Longhorns have gone to overtime against two bad football teams. Teams that are like have won a combined one SEC game in the last 2 years. But then at the same time, you look and go, they haven't passed the eye test, but their resume building's coming up. I mean, you got Vanderbilt at Georgia, you got Texas A&M. I think that's it. Your path to making the college football playoff right there. So I think it could go either way for them. They're the roller coaster team of the country, where everyone's like, well, they're not it, but they can come marching right back, So I think they're probably on the outside looking in, but they're also a team that could swap places with Georgia or even be like one of the top four, teams in the SEC when all is said and done. So I just think that where we're at right now, it's kind of just that snapshot of, we know it's going to look different, but it feels great to be Vanderbilt as of right now. You feel pretty good if you're Ole Miss right now. You feel really good if you're Texas A&M, Alabama. But I do think that, there's still too much football to be played for us to lock any of these teams in. I do think, we can probably lock 4 of them in, because just the math of it, I think the resumes will be strong for 4. Do 5 teams? I don't know. I think it could happen. If the playoff for today, there'd be 5 teams in. But like you said, there's a lot of football still left to be played.
Be fascinating. Next week will be the first college football playoff rankings, so that will be something to keep an eye on. I believe that'll be Tuesday night. And anyone have it on their bingo card before the season that we'd really want to watch Vanderbilt at Texas? We would learn a lot about this playoff race based on Vanderbilt, Texas.
Vanderbilt's just like changed the way that you are thinking about this home stretch, I think, because so many teams when you do the preseason schedule of, all right, they're going to win this game, they're going to lose this game, they're going to win this game. Everyone always just chalks Vanderbilt up as a win. Everyone, even Mississippi State would be chalking Vanderbilt up as a win right now, and they haven't won in 2 years. And it's funny because right now I think Vanderbilt is a better football team than a lot of these teams at the top. Now, what's interesting is they probably don't have the depth and talent across the board that some of these teams do, even though they might be better teams than them, even though that sort of sounds backwards what I just described. But it just makes I think this Vanderbilt and Texas game is like the fascinating like separation of two teams this year, where it's like you have the most talented team in the country with all of these expectations that's losing games or getting into dogfights in games that they shouldn't be in, theoretically. And then you got this team that nobody was talking about that has all these underdogs. There's no talent across the board, and they haven't just won games. They've really just taken control and convincingly won these games. Like, I know the Missouri game was a tight game and Missouri lose their quarterback, but like felt like Vanderbilt was in control for a lot of that game. The LSU game, they're in control for the entire thing. Even the Alabama game, they're fighting until Alabama took control of it. So it's interesting to see how these two team seasons and the journeys they've taken this season, how different they've been from where it started.
How many teams from Tennessee make the college football playoff, do you think?
It's true. I guess 3 of them could, huh? Could be. Yeah. I mean, Tennessee has to have some things go their way, but if Tennessee wins out, I do think Tennessee is going to make the playoff because they'll have to beat Vanderbilt. So that's one team that they're automatically going to jump and have debate over in the playoff race. They would really only need one other team that's not Georgia or Alabama to lose to probably get in.
I'm going to say just one, and I'm going to say it's Memphis. I think
Yeah.
that Tennessee gets tripped up somewhere along the way, and then they beat Vanderbilt, which takes Vanderbilt out of it. I did want to mention, too, Kip talked about South Carolina. One distinction worth pointing out, they almost beat Alabama. That was in Columbia. They have to go to Ole Miss, game in Oxford, so that will be a little bit more difficult for South Carolina if they're going to pull off the upset. All right, turning our attention to the game we will be at on Saturday, Georgia, Florida, number 5, Georgia, taking on Florida. Last game in Jacksonville until 2028 with construction coming up, so that will be something to keep in mind. A nice trip back down to Jacksonville, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Just a heads up, Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, I'll have on Swamp 24/7's Graham Hall to preview this game, learn a lot more about Florida, especially right now. They are rolling with interim coach Billy Gonzalez. Learn a little bit about what's different, what we can keep an eye out for when we get to the game on Saturday afternoon. But had some clips pulled up of Kirby talking about this Florida team. Obviously, very complimentary of what he's seen, but thought it was interesting. He got into what can Florida change in the time they've had since firing Billy Napier. How different could it really look? Here's what Kirby had to say.
I don't know that we have time to dig deep enough in the weeds that you would have to dig all the way into. I mean, I think, obviously Billy Gonzalez will have an impact on that as well. He's been around some really good offensive staffs and has some things he believes in. They have, you don't overhaul your entire offense in that short of time. There's definitely ways to change it up in terms of going faster, tempo, and allowing guys to make plays and go with tempo. They've used tempo quite a bit this year, and I would expect them to continue to do that, to be in attack mode and try to take advantage of some of the things they've seen on tape versus us.
We had the conversation last week about the coaching change and what it can do for Florida. And there's concern among fans about how different things can look for Florida, given that they've had an additional week get ready for game prep. But Ben, if you're a Georgia fan, how worried are you about the unknown with specifically the Florida offense, the fact that they have had time to maybe make some tweaks before this game?
Well, the big thing is they've had the same play caller for 4 years, and now they're not going to have that play caller. And you're the first team that's ever going to be playing against Ryan O'Hara as Florida's play caller, and you just don't know what tendencies he has, things that he likes, or wrinkles that are a little bit different from what Billy Napier liked. I think what Kirby Smart said is accurate, and I watched Billy Gonzalez's press conference, and he said this similar thing. Like, you can't overhaul what you're doing offensively. Like, you have signals and you have ways that you communicate and you have play calls and you have general infrastructure that you've built your offense around the entire offseason and year. You're not going to completely change that in 2 weeks. Are there maybe some things you can get creative, maybe a trick play in there that you can throw in? I've seen some former Florida players on social media make the reference to like Billy Gonzalez is going to air that thing out and like joking around him going 5 wide when Florida hasn't done a whole lot of that. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they do some of that because you throw a little bit of differences out there, see what sticks, but you're not going to be able to live like that. Like, you're still going to have your offensive identity that you've had for an extended period of time. Now, how does DJ Lagway respond to this new group compared to Billy Napier? That'll be interesting. The big thing with this Florida team ultimately is if DJ Lagway does not turn the ball over, they are still a dangerous football team because they're defensively, they're going to stop the run. They're going to make stops. They're going to create turnovers. They've got defensive backs with great ball skills. Offensively, like, they're not, Jaden Ball can run the ball well. They've got perimeter playmakers. And like, you look at stats, interceptions removed, DJ Lagway and Gunnar Stockton haven't had hugely different seasons. Like, they've thrown for about the same amount of yards, same amount of touchdowns, generally the same total like volume of everything. DJ's thrown the ball a little bit more than Gunnar has, but he's turned the ball over he's thrown 9 interceptions. Like, that's completely game changing and arguably season altering or career altering if you're Billy Napier. Georgia has not turned teams over. Georgia has not forced interceptions consistently for a while now. So everyone thinks Georgia's just entitled to having the same experiences against Florida that all these other teams have had. Well, if Florida doesn't turn the ball over, you're going to be in for a much different afternoon than a lot of these other teams that have played against Florida have been up against. And so, like, yeah, I think there's still some, like, if DJ Lagway responds well and he doesn't turn the ball over, and Ryan O'Hara just has a, game of his life as a play caller, and Georgia doesn't really know what to expect, like, yeah, I think Georgia can have a lot of problems when they haven't been able to get off the field against just about anybody this season.
To your point, DJ Lagway, SEC leading 9 interceptions. So that's something that, again, I think it was very smart that you brought up. I mean, just because he's done it against other teams, Georgia's got to take advantage. I can think of a handful of dropped interceptions this year, plays that could have been made that Georgia didn't make. Those don't amount to very much. You have to make those plays. You have to turn teams over and take advantage.
And of course, I'm sure most people listening to this know 5 of his interceptions came in one game. So it's like outside of that one game, he's thrown 4 picks. It's not great, but it's not like he's just been, giving it away all season long outside of that one nightmare that he had in Baton Rouge, which maybe still should have been able to win that game even with him throwing 5 interceptions.
Yeah, you lose a game by 10. That tells me that the turnovers, 5 interceptions, might have had something to do with that. Kipp, how much do you think fans should be concerned about the unknown with this offense, given that new play caller and a new coach running the show?
I mean, like Kirby said, he's going to worry about everything, so I get it. But at the same time, I mean, Kirby has a lot of background on Billy Gonzalez. I mean, he was there during the Mullen days. He's been with Urban Meyer. Like, so if he's going and dusting off old plays, I mean, Kirby should have those plays too. It's just that you don't know which playbook he's going to pull from, but he can't just, like you guys said, he can't hand them a new playbook and say, hey, pick all this up, because he needs them to play fast. He can't confuse these guys over the last 2 weeks. He has to instill confidence in them. So he still has to work in what they've been doing. So you might see some different looks, but I think you're still going to have your same route tree. You're going to have your same cadence, which again, they were one of the slower teams in the country offensively this year. If I was looking at, I guess the time that goes between each snap, it was like 28 seconds. So I mean, they weren't exactly like pushing tempo on everyone. So I think a lot of their tendencies still kind of play into Georgia's strengths as well. If they're, they're not going to attack Georgia the same way that some of the other teams earlier this season have offensively. So I think, again, it comes down to, as it has all season, can Glenn Schumann and this staff react quickly in the first couple of possessions and make those adjustments in the first half instead of the narrative all season where we're having to wait till halftime to see the defense show up. But I do think Georgia's offense is going to help them a lot in that regard and allow them to be able to, whatever Florida's offense shows them, the different wrinkles, I think they'll be able to kind of get that on tape quickly and react. So I would say I'm not really too worried about that. And I'm definitely not worried about Florida's defense against Georgia's offense. I think there's a lot of ways that Georgia should be able to start quickly, take advantage, help its defense out a lot in the first half.
I want to stay on offense. Kirby talked a good bit about DJ Lagway. He said that, he's grown up before our eyes the last couple of years. He had gotten off to a pretty good start in this game last year. He had the touchdown throw to Aiden Mizell that kind of got Florida going. He gets hurt in the second quarter, and Florida just did not have the depth at quarterback behind him, and Georgia took advantage. But I thought it was interesting. A little bit later, I asked Kirby about Florida's receivers, because to me, that's one of the matchups I really want to watch, Florida's receivers against Georgia's secondary. Here's what Kirby said when I asked him what stands out about this group of pass catchers for the Gators.
Speed. They got great size, speed, twitch, movement at the line of scrimmage, ability to make plays down the field, break tackles, block, crack, in the run game, involvement in the run game. They do a really good job getting their wideouts involved in that. Shift motion to get them open, but they're talented. They've got young and old, and they've got good players.
I really find it interesting because this is Billy Gonzalez, who was the receivers coach, stepping up now. He wants to put his receivers in position to succeed, and the thing for me, I'd look back at the Texas game they won. I was super impressed by Dallas Wilson. He had a fantastic game in that one. I think that he is a guy that could give Georgia issues. I feel like, Kip, this is one of the matchups to watch, Florida's receivers against Georgia's secondary. Do you agree? What do you think about the importance of these pass catchers for DJ Lagway when it comes to this game?
Assuming everyone's healthy, then yeah, this offense has the ability to extend some drives. They haven't been able to do so this season. I think that, remember in the Auburn game, we said this is going to be a get right game for either Auburn's offensive line or Georgia's pass rush. And in the end, it was Auburn's offensive line that got the better in pass protection. I feel kind of the similar way for Georgia's ability to get off the field on third down. They've struggled there all season long. It's one of their worst seasons, by far their worst season under Kirby Smart so far. But the Florida team also can't convert third downs. They're one of the worst, if not the worst in the country at that. So I think that's where, again, there are chances for Georgia's defense to show some improvement coming off the bye, them show some different looks that they haven't shown early in the season. But I do think that this is one of those games where, DeMello Jones is going to be asked to wear a lot of different hats, I think. I think this is one of those where you're keeping Jonel Aguero at star. You're also probably having DeMello Jones playing, on the field in the dime package, regardless if you have Ellis on the field. You're going to want to have him on the field as well, because you don't want to lose. You don't want any gaps in your secondary out there as far as coverage. And I think that's kind of a look that they can use that gives them a good chance on third down to get off the field against Dallas Wilson. That was the guy that I was talking about coming in the bye, that this is a guy that Florida has to, feature more. I think he's arguably their best player, and a guy that I think, along with Eugene Wilson, Vernell Brown, can test Georgia's secondary. And I think it is up to Glenn Schumann to make sure that he puts him in a situation to where DJ Lagway is confused and is making bad decisions. And even if he's not pressured, he's seeing different coverage looks that forces some bad decisions.
Ben, what do you think of these Florida pass catchers and just the challenge Georgia's going to be up against on Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's a special group. It's why it's so dumbfounding to me that Florida is in this situation with as good of a defense as they've had. And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. The reason why Florida's in this situation is because DJ Lagway turned the ball over way too much. If DJ Lagway wasn't turning the ball over, Florida would be having a much different season than they're having right now against a really a really difficult schedule as well. Yeah, the receivers are awesome. Eugene Wilson, Dallas Wilson, they are special. I mean, I think we've seen Eugene Wilson have success against Georgia last season as well. And so Vernell Brown, I think one of the more special talents in the SEC at wide receiver. And I think when we look back at his career in a few years, we're going to be like, man, he was on that Florida team that just couldn't do anything. But yeah, I think like Kipp said, Kirby Smart worries about everything. I know that he's going to be worrying. Did you guys lose me? Worried about everything. That's going to be an area that he's going to be very worried. I mean, look, teams have taken shots at Georgia's young corners this season. I did see perhaps a reassuring stat that Ellis Robinson's like top 10 in the country in catch rate when targeted. Now, I know that there have been other issues with penalties and things like that, but I think that there's some reassurance there that what our eyes have told us about DeMello Jones and what maybe statistically it said that Ellis Robinson's had a little bit more success in coverage than it's felt like at times. Like, I think Georgia is going to probably look better in the back end, or at least at corner, the second half of the season than they looked the first half of the season, you would think. And so I think Georgia has what it takes to match that. But again, if DJ Lagway doesn't turn the ball over, or you do not turn DJ Lagway over, they're going to accumulate enough yards on you to get very uncomfortable in Jacksonville. So I cannot harp on the fact enough that, like, you have to find ways to disguise and confuse DJ Lagway and make him turn the ball over, or you're going to be in trouble.
Totally agree. And I think that passing game, They got something to prove, and they've heard, and I'm sure DJ Lagway understands that his play is a big reason why a change was made. So this is a good opportunity for him to show what he's capable of. They're going to be looking to make big plays. Wanted to get into what some of the players had to say the last couple of days. I wanted to start with this. Someone asked Drew Bobo his first memory of Georgia, Florida. He couldn't remember the player's name. It was Jordan Reed who fumbled going into the end zone. I think that was 2012. How did that age you guys? Because I did not care for Drew Bobo saying that was his first Georgia, Florida memory.
Yeah, that's tough. That being his first memory. Wow. I was in college. Those are the good old days.
I remember being at a Halloween party. I was a senior in high school, and me and another buddy, shout out Robert Wofford, we were kind of coming back and forth into the house to see what was happening. So we saw that play. Kipp, would you care to share any thoughts on that being Drew's first memory?
I mean, yeah, I was working, and I mean, like, it was.
You're covering the game.
I mean, that was Gurley and Marshall. We're talking about Malcolm Mitchell made a big play. Is this the? Yeah, this is.
That was Jarvis Jones. Jarvis Jones, right?
Yeah, this was back in the Grantham days. We're talking. Third and Grantham was still alive and well. I can't even right now. Like, it's just that we're really talking about, like, is this, how many generation gaps am I at this point? But I think if I remember, is this like after Sean Williams gave the speech?
Yeah, after the 0-2 start.
Yeah, like, he criticized everyone, and like, that was like the defense came out and, like, held them to, like, single digits. But it was an ugly game then. I think it was just one where the teams tried to just, like, see who could turn the ball over. Like, there was, like, almost double-digit turnovers in that game. So I think it's one that I thought I'd wipe from my memory banks. But, yeah, apparently that was someone's, like, first memory. And so I guess I say I'm sorry. Like, that's a tough one to start off with. But it got better, right? Like, that's not where I would be. I mean, like, if I'll age myself, I just remember my first memory of the game being, like, Bobo winning it. So I'll age at least. Hopefully a non-zero portion of our listeners got aged by me talking about remembering Mike Bobo, actually beating Florida for the first time in a while. So that's me trying to defend and cast aside other people being aged. It's a much smaller subset than what just got aged by Drew Bobo, though. That's brutal.
0-2 is the first one I remember. I don't remember Terrence Edwards' drop, but I do remember Georgia losing that game. Ben, anything come to mind your first Georgia, Florida memory?
I mean, it probably would have been like 2000, 2001, like start of the Mark Richt era. Because that's when I would have started going down to Jacksonville with my best friends it was a Florida fan, current season ticket holder, and he grew up that way. And I grew up going to the Jacksonville game kind of just as a, third party for the fun of it all. I mean, obviously the memory that sticks out to me was being in the end zone when they stormed the field. Like, I was sitting in that end zone with my buddy who's a Florida fan. I've probably told this story on the show before, but I remember him over and over again saying, Mark Richt is classless. Mark Richt is classless, while his head coach was Urban Meyer, which is just like a funny, remembering, looking back at it. But yeah, I mean, I remember that was sort of the moment where I was like, man, this is just really sweet. And that was like right before I was about to be going to college. So it was, made me be like, all right, this is what college football is all about right here.
Yeah, that was 18 years ago. Just wanted to throw that out there for everybody. We got a chance to talk to Jordan Hall and Chauncey Bowens, and I want to run this by Ben because Ben loves to read into everything. Do you think it was intentional that Georgia sent out two guys that Florida wanted really, really bad in high school? Two Florida natives, I should also add.
Well, I thought the same thing, and I think you asked the question to Chauncey right off the bat, like, you were committed to this team. Like, what did you think of this whole thing? I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I wasn't over there today, but when I saw that it was him for starters, and then when you told me it was Jordan Hall was the other guy that was out there, I was like, that does feel calculated by Georgia. And it also just, Georgia doesn't typically do that. So I don't know. Maybe it was an oversight or maybe it wasn't. I don't know.
I was very appreciative, and both of them were very, very good. They are typically really good interviews. I would encourage y'all to watch what each of them had to say. Chauncey talked about a big part of why he wound up flipping to Georgia was the legacy of Georgia running backs and what that means to be a Georgia running back, so that had some sway. Jordan Hall was really good. Jordan Hall may be the best speaker on this team. I love doing interviews with him. He tells you like it is. He doesn't really hold anything back. If you want to go watch the Ole Miss post game, you've known that that's the case. But was interesting. Jordan was talking about how much the players appreciate this rivalry and the respect between the two teams, and this is what Jordan had to say.
I feel like this year more so than any other year, we actually respect it a lot more just because of. On paper, Florida doesn't really look like the greatest team when it comes record-wise. But you go sit down and watch the film, it's one of the better teams we played all year. I know us up front, O-line-wise, that's probably one of the best units we played. So I respect them and their game a lot more just by watching film and sitting down and watching that. But I feel like the rivalry in itself, Coach Smart has done a great job of implementing how much this rivalry means. And Coach Schumann put up an edit inside the team meeting room when Coach Smart first got here. He asked all the guys in the room, who all in here is beating Florida. I think one person stood up. Yeah. So since then, I guess it's been a big deal when it comes to Coach Smart implementing how much this rivalry means to him because he lost to Florida a lot when he was here. So, we're just trying to bring that back and bring that juice back to the rivalry, make sure everybody knows this is a big game in this facility, and go on from there.
Ben, we talked way back before the season. You and Kipp both picked Florida in this game, and I thought Jordan made a great point there that they've got the talent. They've not had the results, and you talked about the turnovers being a big part of it. But I don't know how you feel, Ben, but I feel like that there is a true respect on that Georgia side that they know if they don't play their best, they could very well lose to this Florida team on Saturday.
When you hear Jordan Hall talk, you realize why – like Jordan said, go listen to some of the quotes he had after the Ole Miss game. He's a great quote. He says some things that might be you might fringe on borderline, but you can tell right there. He epitomizes who Kirby Smart is and the things that he talks about. He says, look, yeah, you might look at their record and say they're not good. Go watch the film. That offensive line's the best unit that we're going to face this season or one of. These are the types of things that Kirby Smart says and how he thinks about things. So it makes a lot more sense why you run a guy like Jordan Hall out there for a matchup like this, because I think having the right message and talking points is very important for a game like this. I do find it interesting. He acknowledges, the story of who all's beaten Florida and only one person being able to stand up. And he brings up Kirby Smart had lost a lot of games when he was playing at Georgia. The fact that Jordan Hall didn't hear that one time and say, oh, Kirby Smart lost a lot of times to Florida when he was playing. That's something that's been ingrained in Jordan Hall. And I would imagine a lot of other people that Kirby has, despite what he says, the rivalries are all treated the same and that he doesn't do any extra educating on rivalries, whatever that might be, he can say all that. That's fine. If Jordan Hall is talking about what Kirby Smart did as a player against Florida, it has been talked about to the team at an extensive way. So I think the team is going to be very aware. I do keep going back to the thing. We went into last year and there was not a single coach in college football, active coach in college football that had beaten Kirby Smart. I know that's changed a little bit now because Kalen DeBoer, Marcus Freeman, Lane Kiffin had added their names to the list. It would be weird after that if within 2 years of that, interim coach Billy Gonzalez was able to add his name to that list. So I think that Georgia should feel confident in that respect, going back to what we talked about previously of the unknown around the new coaching staff or whatever. But yeah, I think Georgia's always going to respect its opponent as much as you can respect an opponent. And I don't think it's BS when they do it either. I think Georgia genuinely understands and finds the reason why this specific team can exploit this specific matchup and why that could be the difference in a game like this. And I think they genuinely believe what they're talking about when they say that stuff.
Kirby Smart, right now 3-0 against interim head coaches. Those guys were Mike Bobo at South Carolina, Brent Key at Georgia Tech, and Shane Montgomery at UMass last year. So very interesting list. The thing I wanted to piggyback off of what Ben was saying, with this rivalry, with this series. It's been so one-sided these last few meetings. All it takes is one loss to really get things shaken up. And I think Georgia understands that. And I think if you are a Georgia program that's got so many coaches that played at Georgia, we were just talking about, what we remember about this series. When I was growing up, Georgia could not beat Florida. I remember very vividly after they won in '04, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the front of its sports section was a photo of a touchdown. I think it's Leonard Pope in the end zone, and it had one word: finally. Like, this was just a series that Georgia just could not win. And I think that even if you are on this Georgia team now, I asked Jordan Hall about his favorite memories of this game so far. And he talked about, a big part of it was the wins. He hasn't had to walk off that field with a loss. He's one of the guys that has not, experienced that loss. The last time Georgia lost to Florida back in 2020, I think that you understand that it can change so quickly and that you have to bring your A game, and you do not want to bring more juice to this rivalry, because to do that probably means Florida found a way to win. Kipp, what do you think about that part of this, the rivalry? And Georgia has owned it while also understanding Florida's not going to just lay down and let them name the score. Florida's going to do everything they can to throw a wrench into Georgia's season. And the thing I'd say too, Florida's season may be lost at this point, but what would really make them feel good is knocking Georgia out of playoff contention.
Yeah, it's why people always used to cliche that you throw records out when you have rivalry games like this. Your coaching staff knows, okay, this week we're not going to have an issue motivating these players. That's not going to be a problem for us. And yeah, with it being in Jacksonville, it just kind of ramps everything up a little bit for both sides. And I think at the same time, like, you have to remember that this Florida team sacked Arch Manning 6 times. So your offensive line has to be prepared in this environment and Georgia has been the other team's Super Bowl for like 3 straight years, or 4 years during this run. You're getting everyone's best. This is a prove yourself, put your name out there. And even for guys that may be planning on entering the portal, like, they're like, we can put film out here that, makes us, that can get me hundreds of thousands of dollars in a matter of months. So there's no lacking of motivation from, all of these guys. And I think that, it's going to come down to, I think, this composure in this setting, because I think we have seen the craziest things happen in this game. And we saw a game that looked like it was going a little bit squirrely last year before DJ Lagway got hurt, and that was something that I'll take, I'll own and say I gave a little bit too much value to to what DJ Lagway was doing. He wasn't even playing in that well in that game, but Georgia was turning the ball over, and it looked like he was getting some momentum in that game. And that wasn't even a great Florida team. So the fact that Florida was actually kind of pressuring Georgia in that game and making them uncomfortable shows that this Florida team can definitely do the same thing. So yeah, Kirby Smart's job this week is to remind everyone, like, listen, these guys were giving us all of these issues a year ago. They're just as talented. They have the ability to do that. We got to go out there and just, start the game with composure. That way we're not having to overcome some self-inflicted adversity yet again this season.
Like I mentioned earlier, Thursday morning I will have on Graham Hall from Swamps 24/7. We will preview this game, talk about Florida, learn a little bit more about the Gators. But before then, I want to give both of y'all an opportunity to talk about any other matchups y'all are watching. I'll start with you, Ben. Besides what we've already discussed, anything else that you're interested in seeing when it comes to Georgia going up against Florida?
Well, I think I've made myself very clear in terms of what I think determines whether this is a close game or not. If Georgia turns the ball over, or if DJ Lagway turns the ball over, I do not think that this is going to be a close game. I think it's another test of, can Georgia run the ball against this defensive front? I know we've had a few of those. We talked about this before the Auburn game. We talked about this to an extent before the Alabama game, but Alabama's not the run defense that Florida is, quite frankly. Like, I think this is probably most similar, just in games that we've talked about this season, it's most similar to that Auburn game. Like, you're away from home, you're playing a quarterback that's not been super reliable, but theoretically has some athletic upside to be able to make some plays. I think DJ Lagway has more of that than Jackson Arnold does, but you got some receivers that can make plays, and you've got defensive fronts that can create a lot of issues. And I think Georgia did not run the ball better than Auburn in that game. I think Georgia will have to run the ball better than Florida in this game. And I think Georgia is going to do this. This feels like Georgia coming off a bye, going up against an interim head coach, force a few turnovers and get a little bit more comfortable for this back half of the season. That's what this game feels like to me. But again, you're not entitled to that just because Florida's not played well against other teams at times this season. They've got the dudes to be able to match you if you don't cause those things.
Kipp, any particular matchups that we haven't already talked about that you just want to mention here?
Yeah, I think getting the offensive line healthy, if you have, a healthy Monroe Freeling out there, he's been playing really well as of late when he's out there, and seeing what's been a disappointing for the most part Florida defensive line, not having Caleb Banks out there except for one game's kind of taking them all down a notch. It's kind of have a cascade effect. So can Georgia dominate the line of scrimmage offensively and put themselves in manageable third downs? Conversely, like first, second down defensively has been kind of the story, and Kirby Smart talked about it. Like, your third down defense is terrible because you're not getting into third and longs. So how do you get into third and longs? You got to, make some havoc plays on first and second down. So I'm looking to Georgia's, again, defensive front. Can they actually make an impact in this football game? That's where, again, Christian Miller can make some plays. Elijah Griffin's playing a lot of football. Can these guys make an impact where if Florida's trying to do what everyone else is doing and play tempo, even though neither of these offenses play tempo at all, but if they're trying to attack Georgia that way and keep that personnel on the field for third down, it's going to be up to these defensive linemen to, again, affect DJ Lagway and help out their secondary and help a defense that hasn't gotten any turnovers to actually get a couple against DJ Lagway.
Like I mentioned, 11 a.m. on Thursday, we will have on Swamp 24/7's Graham Hall. Hope you guys will tune in for that. Before we take a quick break, want to mention we are having our world's largest outdoor cocktail party special right now. 60% off or $1 for your first month at Dogs 24/7. Great time to sign up. Got the back half of the football season, potentially a playoff run for the Bulldogs. You want to have access to all our stuff there. Signing day not that far away for Ben Wolk and also Kipp helping out on the recruiting side. A lot of good content over this next month and change. Men's basketball season is right around the corner. They're getting ready for their first game, and we'll talk about that later. Olivia Sayer covering baseball for us. Baseball is not that far away. They've been having some scrimmages, so come join us over on the Junkyard. It's a great time, and like I said, 60% off an annual membership or pay $1 for your first month. That sale ends Thursday night, so make sure and take advantage. All right, we'll take a quick break. Be right back. Guys, one of the nice things about Georgia having a bye week last week was it allowed us to watch some more of the games. It allowed us to watch a little of College Game Day, and I know at least a couple of us were tuned in on Saturday when Nate Bargatze, comedian, Vanderbilt fan, was the guest picker on College Game Day. Ruffled some feathers around Bulldog Nation, got some folks fired up. Mentioned a couple times how much he would love to see Jared Curtis, five-star quarterback from Nashville, Georgia commit, maybe change his opinion and decide to stay home and play for the Commodores. He mentioned it a couple different times, but here's one snippet of Nate Bargatze doing his best pitch for Curtis.
Not to just remind Jared Curtis how much I would love for you to come to Vanderbilt. And we're local kids, become best friends, bud.
So before we get into our reaction, Kirby was, of course, asked about this on Monday, his reaction. Hey, shout out Mark Weiser. Mark Weiser is a pro, Athens Banner Herald. Mark asked about this, but very wisely did not say Jared Curtis's name because you cannot talk about a recruit. You are not allowed to mention specific recruits if you're a coach. So Mark threaded that needle really well. But here's what Kirby had to say about the Nate Bargatze pitch and just his read on all that.
No, I mean, I don't get caught up in it much, Mark. I don't look at the stuff like that and just recruit the best job we can and sell what we have and talk to the kids and communicate with the kids that we talk to and trust them for what they tell us and not get into gimmicks and propaganda stuff.
Propaganda. What? I just love the word choice. So we're going to start this. Ben, I know that you have been following the Jared Curtis recruitment from the jump. Let's start with just the Vanderbilt piece of all this. What you can tell us about Jared Curtis and his standing with Georgia coming off of that trip. And then we're going to talk specifically about the Bargatze of it all.
Well, yeah. From a Jared Curtis standpoint, I encourage people to go to Dogs 24/7. I had an update before the weekend. I had an update after the weekend. I think there was a lot of consistency between those two updates, but I felt necessary to have an update on both sides of it just so that people were, maybe talked off a ledge a little bit. So I have a little bit more detail there that I would encourage you to go subscribe to Dogs 24/7 and check out. I think that Georgia should be feeling okay about things right now. And I think that a lot of the reaction to all of it, and I think when we talk about the Nate Bargatze stuff and all of it, I think it's what's beautiful about college football. It's why I love college football. It's just fun. It's chaos. It's ridiculous. You can't script certain things. That's just how, funny and ridiculous that it is. But yeah, I think Georgia should be feeling good on the recruiting front there. Obviously, we've lived in the Dylan Raiola world. We know that things are not guaranteed until you sign. But I think that Georgia, as Kirby Smart said there, I don't think he was taking a cheap shot at Clark Lee when he was saying gimmicks and propaganda. I think that he was saying, look, we're going to recruit the guy based on all of the ways that we recruit the quarterback position, whatever tools and resources Georgia uses to sell the quarterback position at Georgia. That's what Georgia is going to do. When Vanderbilt has an opportunity to make some buzz around a recruit that you wouldn't ordinarily think that Vanderbilt would be able to create some buzz around it, why would you not do that? Take advantage of that, but it's not going to change anything Georgia does. And I think the key thing that he said there is you trust the conversations that you're having with these players and their families. And yes, no one, Kirby Smart especially, is naive enough to think that a coach has never been lied to by a player or their family. But that's the point of the recruiting process. You build these relationships with them and you have open conversations. We've seen Georgia get burned before, so we can't say that they will never be burned. But I think that what made Georgia confident about all of it and not shut him down and say, hey, don't go enjoy one of the biggest sports moments Nashville's had in a while. Don't shoot that down. Just make sure everything's in good standing. You're feeling good. Georgia was already planning to go send Mike Bobo up during the bye week anyway. So it worked out from a timing standpoint that he was getting face-to-face time with Mike Bobo right then and there. And that was going to happen regardless of the Vanderbilt visit or not. So I think it worked in Georgia's favor ultimately that this happened during their bye week because they were able to get Mike Bobo up there right away. If Georgia was that worried about it, Kirby Smart was out at a few places on Friday. I think that Kirby Smart probably would have been up in Nashville if there was much greater concern than that. He didn't feel the need to do that. He went to several different places around the Atlanta area. And so, yeah, I think Georgia should be feeling good there for now, which I always throw that caveat, basically because we lived the Dylan Raiola experience. And I don't want to ever sell anyone saying it's 100% going to happen, though I'm pretty confident in Georgia right now with Jared Curtis.
So I wanted to talk about the Nate Bargatze college game day piece of this. I saw some fans, and I'm not saying this is everybody, but upset that it played out like this, that Nate was on there, really pushing for Jared Curtis. I'll preface it by saying I'm a huge Nate Bargatze fan. I've seen him live. I've listened to his podcast quite a bit, so I'm a big fan. At the end of the day, if you're a comedian on college game day, and if you're just a comedian in general, you have to think, is what I'm about to say funny? And what he was saying was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty funny. He's like, you want to be in a movie? Because Nate Bargatze's got a movie coming out. I'm not sure if that's this year or next, but no, I thought it was funny. And I thought, honestly, that was one of the more genuine game day pickers. Ben, you made the joke about Georgia having Jelly Roll as the game day picker. He's a Tennessee fan. I actually kind of love them having someone, he's a diehard Vanderbilt fan. He's had Commodore stuff in his stand-up when Vanderbilt wasn't any good. He's a genuine Vanderbilt fan. I can understand why it might have rubbed some people the wrong way, but I thought it was funny. And at the end of the day, if he were to flip to Vanderbilt, there will not be a situation where he says, yeah, that comedian went on there and said that. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do what he said. It was funny. And there was a bit of quite a couple comedians trying to make an impression. I saw Jared took a photo with Theo Vaughn too. So I don't know if Nashville is just a home for comedy right now or what, but Kipp, just what did you think of that piece of it? There were fans that were upset that Bargatze went on there and was pushing for it. Do you have an issue with that?
I think it's more, no issue whatsoever. Shoot your shot. And he was outstanding on game day. And to Jelly Roll's credit, he was outstanding on game day as well. I think they both did a great job on there, and they were great presences in that setting. Georgia fans are just like, why did we get Jelly Roll for our college game day? That's it. Like, you kind of want someone representing your school. And I think ESPN sometimes this season has chosen to go in a different direction, just pick someone who they think is going to just put on a good show. And Athens got the short end of the stick. Athens has had college game day a lot over the last couple of years. They've been in some big time games. This is Vandy's. All the years they were showing for the last time Vanderbilt had done any of this was long time ago. So this was their moment. You're not going to get, you might not get one of these again. We think that the program's doing good things, but you don't know. They got a head coach that himself, you never know where he'll be coaching next year. So I think that, again, if you're a Georgia fan thinking about Jared Curtis, you also got to think, is this a flash in the pan for Vanderbilt? I'm a Georgia fan. My head coach is recruiting recruits committed to other schools throughout the country. Georgia's got a much better chance of flipping somebody else's commit than Jared Curtis does of flipping to Vanderbilt right now. But in the moment, sure. Like, you want to keep your quarterback. Never mind the fact that you don't even know who the quarterbacks are going to be at Georgia next year. Does Jared Curtis coming in? Does Gunnar Stockton come back? Where's Ryan Puglisi in this? Like, it's just, your feelings are going to go somewhere. You're not going to have all these quarterbacks on your roster. But I think in this moment, Vanderbilt had its fun. Georgia's already put a lot of effort into keeping Jared Curtis. They've already made it known to him that he is valued in Athens. Nothing's changed there. He already knows what he has waiting on him in Athens. I think you're in good shape right now. But you can be upset about that if you want to. But you got to pick your battles here, guys. Like, Jelly Roll put on a good show. You'll get a Georgia fan your college game day next year.
Ben, what did you think of just the pitch coming on college game day and some of the blowback because of that?
Well, for starters, let me start by that. I don't know this, but I would be willing to guess Jared Curtis isn't exactly Nate Bargatze's demographic. So I'm guessing Jared Curtis wasn't sitting there saying, "Oh my God, Nate Bargatze said my name on ESPN. Now I've got to go to Vanderbilt." So let's start there and say when Kirby says gimmicks and propaganda, he's saying like, ultimately, that's the type of stuff that doesn't matter in college football recruiting. It's just part of the fun and part of the hoopla that comes along with it. I think the only reason people might be annoyed by it is them feeling like ESPN is somehow complicit in it, that it's like you get game day the week before, you get Jelly Roll, the next week they get Nate Bargatze, and now he's trying to flip the other team's quarterback. But look, that's just how it played out. Like Kipp said, like, I don't know why Jelly Roll was I keep saying, like, I think Kevin Kisner would end up being Georgia's all-time game day host, but I bet you there's some NBC conflict going on there with him being an employee over there that prevents him from doing it. So I just think, look, Georgia's had a lot of game days recently. They've gotten through a lot of their Rolodex of Georgia guys that could potentially do it. Like, they didn't end up getting it. It just so happened they went to Vanderbilt. It just so happened that Jared Curtis was visiting for that game, and it gave him an opportunity to lean into it. But no, I think it's all in good fun. I loved it. I thought it was funny. And I think Jared Curtis probably is more a Theo Vaughn guy than a Nate Bargatze guy, if I'm just guessing.
Wayne Knight the next time that Georgia has college game day. Why not?
That's right.
All right, coaching carousel check-in. We have got a big one to talk about this week. LSU moving on from Brian Kelly after Texas A&M laid a whooping to LSU on Saturday night. So that is a huge job that is open. If you were watching this live, you can see that I have pulled up a graphic I made of some of the jobs we've already predicted. If you remember, I think it was the last episode, we set the rule that if you picked a coach for a job, you cannot pick that coach for another job, but the other two co-hosts can for their list. And I'll throw out two. One of the jobs I don't have on this graphic, the Arkansas job. Kipp has Troy's John Summerall getting that job. I have interim coach Bobby Petrino getting the job full time. And then Ben has Rhett Lashley leaving SMU to come home and coach the Razorbacks. So we're going to look now at the LSU job. I will say this from the jump. There's a pick I made that I'd love to have over where I put Lane Kiffin for the Florida job, because now I think it's LSU or Ole Miss if I had to guess for Lane Kiffin. But I'll start with you, Kipp. LSU job. Give me who you predict LSU winds up hiring to replace Brian Kelly.
Yeah, I kind of feel similar to you. Like, I used my Summerall pick way too early in the carousel, and I think he's definitely heavily in the mix here. But yeah, the fact that I get to pick first, and I haven't used him yet. I mean, I'm going with this is going to be where we're going to learn a lot about Lane Kiffin and how his agent feels about the jobs that are open, because now he's got 3 SEC teams basically all battling for him. And I think, what do we think about the Florida job? You know, that's always been kind of the one where if he goes there, he could do really well. But if I'm really thinking about which job has been the more valuable one over really the last decade, I think this LSU one is the one that it's built better for him to succeed, and it might even be a better fit. I like Lane Kiffin for this job. He's my pick right now, and I think it just makes a lot of sense, because he's built Ole Miss into, you know, a playoff caliber team. This is the time for him to find the best overall ceiling. And I don't think it's at Ole Miss. I think that their ceiling is where he has them right now, is like a get into the playoff, but maybe not a favorite kind of situation. And you go to LSU, and I mean, we've seen what they've done in recent years. I think that's a roster, that's a state that you can really mine for talent and really, you know, put the LSU Tigers back into being a strong college football playoff contender every single year. So I'm going with Kiffin. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch what he does. And he still has to manage the football team he has right now, while knowing that he may have 2 better jobs waiting on him right now. So I think it's going to be really entertaining, because, I mean, just yesterday, just what he was saying, you know, about dominating Oklahoma, that was just incredible microphone moment that, you know, those are the days you live for the quotes that he gives on a daily basis.
Want to point out that Kipp has picked a Kiffin for each of the last 2 jobs. He picked Chris Kiffin as Colorado State's coach. Just putting this out there, Kipp, if you need it. David Reeves, his former brother-in-law, he's the co-offensive coordinator at Oregon. So if we want to keep this train going, I am going to put you on the spot, Kipp, because we talk about this LSU job, how good it is. I want to test your memory. Can you tell me the last LSU head coach, aside from Brian Kelly, who's now out, the last LSU head coach who did not win a national title?
Ooh. That's a tough one. I
remember who was right before Saban. Who was it?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I do not know the answer to that one, and I'm hating myself for that.
Ben, you want to give a guess?
I don't even have one.
So I wouldn't have known this. I'm not going to act like I would have known this. I would have remembered this. Jerry
You just
DiNardo.
wanted to make us look dumb.
Yes, that's what I live for. Jerry DiNardo.
Oh yeah, I can feel good. I feel good about not getting that one. I'm okay with that.
Vanderbilt and LSU and Indiana legend, Jerry DiNardo. All right, Ben, I'm going to throw it to you. Who do you predict LSU winds up hiring?
Well, I've got a couple takes I want to get off, as you know. I don't think that Lane Kiffin is going to take any job other than Ole Miss in college football. That's a take that I have. I think that he feels that he can accomplish what he wants to accomplish, and I think that he is going to continue getting more and more support from the Ole Miss side of things because of really just like the renovated reputation that he has across college football, I guess you could say. Like, we went from like last coaching cycle when he was up for grabs, a lot of teams being like, we're too good for Lane Kiffin, to now him being like the belle of the ball in college football that everybody would want. I think he loves what he's doing at Ole Miss. I think that he feels that he was a stupid Florida loss last year away from making the playoff, and that he very likely is going to make the playoff this year. I think he feels like he's in a good spot at Ole Miss. I continue to think leaving a Big Ten or SEC job for another Big Ten or SEC job is a huge risk, because all of these schools right now are getting the $20.5 million rev share, and everybody has a pool of money to be able to work with. And when you leave, the portal now becomes a game. Now, Lane Kiffin can play the portal game as well as anyone, but it becomes a game that you now have to play right in that first year, or things can get really ugly really quick. So I don't think so. That leads to my other take. I don't think there's many Big Ten coaches that are going to want to take SEC jobs. Just like I don't think there's a bunch of SEC coaches that are going to want to take Big Ten jobs, because you're already kind of in the spot that you're looking to be based on. I get it. There's still some alumni involvement, and there's still facilities, and there's still, a little bit of fundraising. But even Kirby Smart brought it up on Monday. Like, you don't do as much of when he was asked about being an alum of your school and whether that helps. And he was like, it probably helped a few years ago when the fundraising for collectives was more of a thing than it is now. Now it's like you kind of have your pool of money, and sure, you can go above it, but there's more business ways that you have to go above it than you were doing before with just fundraising. So I bring up all that to say, I think Lane Kiffin could end up parlaying this bolstered reputation into an NFL job. I'm not ruling that one out, which sounds crazy, but how many college football coaches have been NFL head coaches before? There's not many of them. So all that to say, I'm not going to be taking Lane Kiffin for any of these job openings. Not that I could, because Kipp just took him for this one. I just don't think that he's going to leave Ole Miss for another college gig. That said, LSU just fired a guy because, and I disagreed with it at the time. I think in retrospect, it's proven to be true what people were saying, that Brian Kelly was not a fit at LSU. And I thought it was stupid, because I thought people were just saying he's a Midwestern guy who's not familiar with Louisiana, and so he's not a fit. I don't think that's why he ended up not being a fit. I think he ended up not being a fit because Louisiana specifically is such an ingrained, tight-knit culture. And for lack of a better phrase, he just doesn't care about other people, it seems. So it's I don't think that he ever took the time to ingratiate himself with the people that he needed to around Louisiana. When you've got people talking about the Board of Regents, which has the governor involved, and everybody seems to be against you, the entire state of Louisiana is against you. And that's not happening because you won 10 games, 9 games, and won a Heisman. Yeah, it's not LSU standards, but you've got to be a big asshole, if we're just being real about it, for people to want to turn on you that quickly like they did. I'm just putting it like it is. personality is the reason why he was run out of town. And I don't think that that's because he doesn't understand the state of Louisiana or wouldn't have been able to be successful at any Southern school. I don't think he took the time to understand and appreciate why Louisiana and LSU is an individually, uniquely special place in college football because of what it can do in its home state. I don't think there's a person out there in the world that does a better job of knowing how to do that and being able to do that than John Sumrall right now. And I think that Woodward has gone and gotten Jimbo Fisher from Florida State, and he's gone and gotten Brian Kelly from Notre Dame. So I'm not ruling some big swing splash hire that he tries to make with a Dan Lanning or a Lincoln Riley or something like that we're not even talking about or thinking about right now. But I think they would be way better off going with the guy who clearly loves the state, has proven that he can do it in the state. Everyone seems to think is the next up G5 head coach. And so it just feels like too perfect of a fit for me in terms of all the complaints about Brian Kelly not understanding Louisiana. Well, go get a guy that's won and understands it really, really well.
I think it's a good point about Brian Kelly. To me, he kind of fits the Tom Herman model of your record isn't that good, but you're a jerk. And so if you give people a reason to run you out of town, they will. And I don't know, Ben, if you've seen as much as I have, a lot of folks spilling tea about Brian Kelly, just, having to interact with him now that he's gone.
It seems to me, and again, I already piled on by using foul language on our show, so I hope your kids weren't listening when I said that. But look, everywhere that Brian Kelly's been, when people leave him, they have negative things to say, and they're not afraid to say it publicly. Like I saw the thing getting brought up about when he was at Cincinnati and Salah and LaFleur, who were NFL head coaches, were in GAs at the time, and they get invited to this Christmas party and they're shoveling snow and then just get told to go back home. And like they said, when they get to their point in their career, they're not going to treat people that way. Like what boggles my mind about Brian Kelly is like, he has to know people talk about him this way. He has to know that this is the way that people view him. And then when you've got two, I know Salah's not an NFL head coach right now, but two guys that are NFL head coaches, LaFleur, who's one of the best NFL head coaches right now, that aren't afraid to talk about you that way. Like you've made some serious missteps along the way that I think you need to, you're a good football coach. That's the thing. He's a good football coach. I truly believe that, but there's more to being a college football coach than just being a good football coach. You got to understand people better than it seems that he understands how to be with people.
So I mentioned that if I could do it over again, I would have saved my Lane Kiffin pick, and I think that Kipp made a good pick there. And I like Ben's pick of John Sumrall. I'm fascinated to see if LSU thinks it's too good for Tulane's coach. They should not. I want to make that very clear. But I could see the LSU politics saying, well, we can do better than that. Someone's going to hire John Sumrall this offseason, and someone's going to have a very good football coach. My pick, I went through a couple different ones. This is a guy that his name came up for an earlier job. None of the three of us picked him. I'm going to go with Georgia Tech's Brent Key. I think that him and Clark Lee, I think, are in very similar situations where they are at their alma maters. They're doing really well this season, but the question is, how sustainable is that over the long term? Brent Key was at Alabama for several years. He's done a great job at Georgia Tech. I think he's going to face the question that Clark Lee's going to have to face in the next few weeks of, can I really afford to stay at my alma mater? Is this what I want, knowing that that ceiling is going to be lower? I just mentioned Jerry DiNardo is the last LSU coach who did not win a national title. Ed Orgeron, for all his faults, managed to win a national title at LSU. That's the aspirations. So there's some other picks I would make ahead of this one, but I think Brent Key needs to be in this conversation if you're LSU. I think he's the kind of coach you want to bring in to deliver some stability, to get things going in the right direction. I'll say this too. If Brent Key were to leave, I'd be interested to see if Buster Faulkner has a chance to replace him at Georgia Tech. They've done such a good job, and I think Buster Faulkner's not that far away from becoming a head coach on his own.
I like that pick a lot. I've thought, would Brent Key take a job anywhere? Because he loves Georgia Tech, and I think he genuinely believes in Georgia Tech. The LSU job is one of the ones that I think would have to make him reconsider that.
That's one I don't think you can afford to turn down, at most places, which kind of adds up, brings us back to that's what makes what Lane Kiffin does in these next few weeks very, very interesting. All right, before we get out of here, Georgia men's basketball minute. Georgia was back in Stegeman Coliseum on Sunday. Took care of Troy 81-65. Good exhibition before the season opener against Bellarmine coming up next Tuesday. Good showing from Georgia. Cannon Catchings led the way with 15 points. Really hot start to the second half. Jeremiah Wilkinson, I'll go ahead and tell y'all, if you get a chance to watch Georgia, Jeremiah Wilkinson is going to be fun to watch. Cal transfer, had 13 points. Overall, good exhibition from Georgia. They shot a lot better from three compared to their first game, the first exhibition against Georgia State. Really struggled there. Tempo is going to be a huge piece of this team. I mean, they go all out. They're wanting to press quite a bit. We'll see if this team can keep up shooting-wise. That's my biggest question, is can they be consistent shooters? Because there were stretches where they really struggled, and they need guys like Blue Kane to play better. He started off slow. Thought second half he played really well, but the season, as hard as it is to believe, is right around the corner. Tuesday night, they host Bellarmine, team that really struggled last year. I think the Knights won like 6 games. They got a new coach running the show, but pretty cool, guys. Got a little glimpse of this team in Stegeman, and before too long, we'll actually have a game to recap and get a better sense of where these Bulldogs are to open the 2025-26 season.
For you right now, if it's in the game situation, from what you've seen, who's the go-to guy?
I think it's probably either Jeremiah Wilkinson or I'd say Blue Kane, because Blue's done it. And, you know, I think about the Florida game. If Blue does not hit that shot late, they lose that game. They would have not been able to finish. So those are the
Maybe
two
Florida
guys.
doesn't win the national championship, though. You never know. You got to think of it that way. Maybe Georgia fans would have rather missed that shot. Florida doesn't win the national championship.
I don't know. I had this thought the other day. I'll get your thought too, Kip. I mean, it is pretty sweet to be like, we still beat y'all. You won the
Last
national
team to beat
title.
the national champs, yeah.
That's not nothing, right?
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. I mean, moral victories aren't the ones that. I mean, you don't want to hang the moral victory banners up, stack too many of those. But sure, I mean, if that's where you want to start, I think maybe NCAA tournament appearances and a random Sweet 16 here and there would be a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, is that like the high point? I mean, like, no, we like getting back to the tournament, right? So yeah, I think you got to get a little bit more than that. I think that's not something where you can really. I mean, that's what other teams did, you know, with Georgia back in the day. You know, it's not something in football. So I don't think that's what you really want to go with. But it's the off season a little bit longer. You can kind of play that game, but no, I think what you want to be talking about is this team's actually shooting threes. You know, let's see this team, you know, take over a game, just shooting lights out. And we're not talking about how, you know, last season, as far as that being the issues that we saw very early on. That's come on, let's raise the bar here for Georgia men's basketball.
Georgia versus Bellarmine next Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will have a chance. I'll be on hand for that, and so y'all can follow along. Should be a good start to the season for the Bulldogs. So we'll wrap up the episode. I appreciate Kip and Ben for popping on. Thanks everyone who watched this live, everyone who is watching or listening to it after the fact. Please go to Dogs 24/7, subscribe. Again, 60% off VIP membership, or just pay $1 for your first month. That deal will end Thursday night at midnight, so take advantage. Again, we got Georgia football going on, men's basketball less than a week away. Baseball will be here before you know it. Join us on the Junkyard. We have a great time over there. Subscribe to the Junkyard Dawgcast wherever you get your podcast. Please rate and review. Helps us out a ton. Subscribe to our YouTube, Dogs 24/7. Again, I'd highly encourage y'all, go watch the Jordan Hall interview. Go watch the Chauncey Bowens interview. We have basketball interviews there as well, and some baseball ones too as they go through some fall scrimmages. And go check out our TikTok. Shout out to Ben. Got a good video of Craig Dandridge, one-handed catch I threw on there. And folks were excited to see that. So be sure to subscribe there as well. So we'll end the episode right there. For Kipp Adams and Ben Wolk, I'm Jordan Hill. Until next time, take care, everybody.